Technology, everyone. It provides great opportunity and sometimes it can be challenging, and we all face it. Even our brothers and sisters from the Northern Territory Government, which is fantastic. Family, look, welcome. Look, hello, brothers and sisters, wherever you're joining from our global village at the moment. My name's Murray Saylor. I'm part of the Northern Territory in the Black Indigenous Business Resilience Program. And today, thank you very much for joining us for our yarning circle today. So, as part of our Northern Territory in the Black Indigenous Business Resilience Program, firstly, I want to acknowledge our Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander ancestors, our elders, our community members, families, and our future generations, which we're all trying to inspire, trying to sustain, and obviously trying to get through these challenges that we're experiencing at the moment. I'd like to extend that acknowledgement and that welcome to Kathy and to Jason today, who have joined our call, and also all brothers and sisters, no matter where you're from, what organization, what community, where the hell you are from. I want to extend that deep respect and humbling respect to you all. And also, if we have, just in our domestic and our global village, also want to pay deep and humbling respect to anyone who has passed, family, friend, foe, doesn't matter. Let's pay respect to them as well. So firstly, I just want to go through just a bit of a blurb before I introduce my wonderful guest today. So the Northern Territory in the Black Indigenous Business Resilience Program is a business focused on providing our steadily established Northern Territory Indigenous businesses with online Facebook community platform to be able to share business information around COVID-19, recovery, sustainability, resilience, and also obviously growth. And that's a key topic for today's discussion. The program is focused around obviously our networking throughout the Northern Territory amongst our businesses around our organizations, either government, private, or obviously public sector, sharing business information, sharing our experiences around COVID and how we're dealing with it, but also more importantly, try and encourage a collaborative and close and connected environment for everyone to network, conduct business, but also start to get to know each other and who's who in the Zoom. So today, joining me in the virtual yarning circle today, I'm going to refer to you as brother and sister, if you don't mind, Jason and Kathy, if that's okay. Sister Catherine White, she's Senior Executive Director of Business and Workforce. I'll do a bit of a bio. Catherine's role of Senior Executive Director of Business and Workforce in the Department of Trade, Business and Innovation, has a significant focus on supporting small business to survive and thrive in challenging environments. And also beside her, wonderful individual, the 1-2 punch. So Brother Jason Schoolmeester. Yes. Jason is a Senior Executive Director in Team Rebound, supporting the Territory Economic Reconstruction Commission in the provision of advice on accelerating the Territory's economic rebound from COVID-19 and positioning the Territory for growth. So welcome, my brother and sister, onto the yarning circle today. You'll have to take off, you're just on mute, yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much. Can I just, and thank you for the very warm welcome. That was lovely. Can I just check, are we able to play the PowerPoint, or is that gone separately?
So we're going to do it ourselves.
Yeah. So I'll in regards to what the process is for all our family that are listening in today, what we're going to do, I'm going to hand over and have Brother Jason and Sister Kath share their slide presentation and then what we'll do is we'll have some questions I'll open up to the floor, and I will mediate that in the background. Is that okay, Sister Kathy and Brother Jason?
Yeah.
I'll hand it over to you both. Thank you.
And I might start off by saying we're meeting, or we're sitting in on lovely Larrakia country on an absolutely gorgeous day. So feel very lucky and privileged to be here. And thank you for the invite. From my perspective, COVID-19 was such an incredible shock to obviously the planet, but I felt very privileged to be in a place where I could be working with some levers and programs and support to be able to work with a small business and to be able to adapt very quickly and change our programs and services to support business immediately. But it did. We're in the process now, I guess, of reviewing phase 1 and going, okay, what do we need to do? What worked really well? What didn't work well? What do we need to do moving forward from here? So this is a perfect timing to be able to talk to and present some of what we did and get some feedback, I guess, from this very illustrious group as to advice on what we should do and think about moving forward. So I'm just going to run through what we did quickly. If
Is the screen sharing working now?
can people see the presentation?
Yes, we can.
Okay, super. All right. So kicking off. So when I guess when it all happened, we
can see the next screen.
Yeah. I'm going to say the sister side of this is working well with the technology, but the brother isn't. Let's jump in. So I guess when it happened, we had businesses who literally were given 24 hours notice to be told that they might have to close their doors, they might have to change the way they operate, they may have been cut off entirely from, we had borders put in place. So it was a real shock to the system. And we have 14,000 businesses in the Northern Territory, and 97% of them are small micro businesses. So we had a lot of people really worried, concerned for health, concerned for their business, and a real need to get information out in a way that people could feel some form of comfort. We also have businesses spread out across the whole territory. So it was a really, the very first thing we needed to do was to be able to connect and talk to business and say, hey, are you okay? Do you understand what's happening? So I'm just going to talk about a small part of that. So here we go. So first of all, so the first thing we did was we have a fabulous network of small business champions who are out there working with business. But there's only 25 of the small business champions, and obviously big territory to cover, and 14,000 businesses. So the first thing we had to do was ramp up our reach. So we went to the Chamber of Commerce and we went to Business Enterprise Centre and said we would like to extend our reach to be able to to help as many small businesses immediately as possible. We also stood up within Trade, Business and Innovation a rapid response team, a little bit like Mission Impossible, of 30 people to go out and actually talk to business. Because what was happening at that time was just a lot of fear and uncertainty, and businesses really needed to be able to talk to someone. We also thought about how we do this we had businesses that had English as a second language, so we had people go out who might have been able to talk in different languages as well. So we tried to reach out and just check in with people and see if they were doing okay. So if I just talk about the small business champion side, we talked to 1,700 businesses. 170 of those were Aboriginal businesses, so around 10%. And we are now reviewing and saying, is that about right, or is that, are we underdone then? It is a challenge, and I think people in the room will understand this, in actually defining an Aboriginal business. So we've got our fabulous Northern Territory Indigenous Business Network, we've got Supply Nation, we've got ORIC, we've got ICNNT, and they all have slightly different definitions of Aboriginal business, and there's no one master list. So out of those 14,000 businesses, I can't say hand on heart how many of them are Aboriginal businesses. So if we want to make sure that our support is going where we need it and we're not missing a cohort of people, we probably need to understand that a little bit better. But when we went out and talked to, and this is just based on the 170 Aboriginal businesses we talked to immediately after COVID, we got really good information. 70% of the businesses were aware of the restrictions and kind of understood what was happening. But then we had 36% of businesses who were confident they were going to need to reduce staff and 31% of those businesses said they didn't think they were going to be able to adapt and survive after COVID. So we now are going back to those businesses and talking about, well, you know, there was a lot of shock value that was happening then, but potentially, hopefully they're still around, because we haven't had the huge business closures that we might have been expecting initially in the Northern Territory. The other thing we did was we stood up an online health check tool, because not everyone actually wants to talk to a human. Some people are very IT savvy and they want to jump on and they want to get a feel for that. Where is my biggest risk? So that we put up we worked with EY to, in 48 hours, stand up a health check tool, which basically just talked them through the areas of their business. And at the end of that, it said, would you like to talk to someone? It gave them a, you know, if your business was an immediate financial risk, because that was probably, you know, have you got enough cash to keep your business open for a week? Then within 24 hours, we had someone from the Business Enterprise Centre connect them up with someone who could help. And everyone who went through this, at a minimum, got 4 hours of professional support from financial experts or whatever experts they needed. So we stood that tool up to, again, put the reach out and get the triage happening.
Yeah, great.
The next step, we then said, okay, well, now we know what the problem is, and I guess we didn't have to be rocket scientists to say that financial cash flow was going to be a big one. We said, okay, we've already got a suite of business support and programs within DTBI, which is called our business growth programs. And they have a number of categories, and they can support businesses with anything from, say, a technical solution to business planning to resilience planning. But all of them required a co-contribution, and in general, all of them required 3 quotes. So we said, right, well, the first thing we can do is just make it simpler to access this service. So we took away co-contributions, we took away the requirement to get 3 quotes, and we made it easy for any of the, you know, not the referrals could come from the Business Enterprise Centre, Chamber of Commerce, Small Business Champions, or NTIBN. So we expanded that as well. Had a huge uptake in those programs. One of the things we did, we had 250 businesses access a digital solution, so set up e-commerce or set up a new website, or different ways of telling customers what's happening with their business. We also stood up a few different programs. We got KPMG, Deloitte, EY, and PricewaterhouseCoopers all in the same room, and said to them, right, well, we actually don't need you to be competitors here. We need you to be collaborators in helping our NT businesses. And they all came up with sort of a bespoke program that would support small business that was in something that wasn't already available. So KPMG, we actually built on the back of tourism, so we'll give them credit there, had set up a KPMG program for business resilience, which basically just had a back look at your books and said, okay, what are you doing, cash flows and some scenario modelling. Deloitte did a program about, okay, well, now you want to think about your export market, and we'll get more into that with Jason. So, and then they also came up with a business innovation program, which reinvent yourself. If you used to sell widgets and there's no widgets in the post-COVID world, what could you do? So they kind of set that up as well.
Cathy,
and then we had a fairly...
Sorry, Cathy, I just had a quick question. And was the main reason, what was the main driver for going to the top 4? When I know there's a number of mid-tier consultancy organisations within Northern Territory. Was that a risk profiling consideration assessment, or I'm just wondering? That's all just for our audience.
Sure, no, that's a really good question. So we have 200 consultants and businesses that are on our consultant register. So they are already providing the business growth programs. So the reason we went to the Big 4 was because we were looking for things that were probably quite high level. They had to be really fast, because we needed these programs stood up
Yeah.
really quickly, and they were focusing on the areas that they have some expertise. But you're right, we did get a little bit of flack from that.
Yeah.
We also were repurposing money, so we weren't taking money away from any of the other things that we were doing, rather than we still had that core small business consultancies that were helping each other. In fact, the most common referral for all of this was being referred back to someone's own accountant to support them in getting a bit of a business plan. But these were kind of the above and beyond. COVID's not normal, like it's just that above and beyond.
Thank you for that.
Yeah, it's an excellent question, and that's part of our review now. How do we make sure in all stages of this, and one of the other, and I'm not really talking about that today, but one of the other things we were doing simultaneously is standing up the Small Business Survival Fund and the stimulus program for construction and repairs and maintenance. So with that construction program, we had 1,700 businesses register to deliver stimulus programs. So we had a home improvement scheme, business improvement grants, and immediate work grants. And I'm very interested in knowing how many of those 1,700 are Aboriginal businesses. Did they have the same access, engagement with our programs and services? So we absolutely, in our thinking now, we absolutely want to go in every step and in every way. Did we maximise the opportunities for local Aboriginal businesses, not just engaging as a customer, but as a provider as well?
Yeah, love it. Thank you.
So if I just talk about the business growth program, so during that 3 months from COVID, we had 281 business growth programs. As I said, about 250 of them were digital solutions and websites. Of those 281, we had 40 Aboriginal businesses engaged. So that's about 15%. So that's just one of the programs, but again, is 15% the right amount? Are there groups that are out there that simply are unaware what's possible, or found it too hard to engage, or, you know, that's really important that we try and understand that. At the same time, we were looking at training and short courses. So we were in all of the training sector was also undergoing a real shock. So we had training providers, Alpa is a training provider, where they usually get funding for apprenticeship training, which is whole qualifications. No one was taking on apprentices. Their business model was at risk. So we worked with all those providers to look at, well, we have a real need for short courses, critical skills, upskilling and reskilling. And so we varied all of their contracts to give them more time and to allow them to deliver differently. And we're really quite proud that we were the fastest nationally, sorry, Western Australians in the room, but we were quite quick to develop a response to change the way the training system was funded and the way it was working. So we're delivering critical skills training, and Alpa is a great example of that. They're, as an RTO in East Arnhem, took on that really quickly. They were trained up, they trained their trainers using another local NT trainer, and they're now delivering infection control right across East Arnhem. And then we had Bachelor Institute, is also one of the providers that's delivering the infection control, is now working with ranger groups who've said that if they do the infection control training and first responder training, then they may get different contracts and jobs. So they might be able to do some border control or some first responder during COVID. So an opportunity there. So that's just a little bit from the training side. And we will continue that with the new job trainer program, so the partnership with the Commonwealth. And then finally, I just thought I'd throw these up because these are just 3 absolutely brilliant stories. businesses that essentially, survived and thrived through COVID, and some of the opportunities that have come up through COVID in the digital and the innovation space. So Warner is got a busy voucher, so business innovation grant to do secure online information access to Aboriginal communities. So during COVID, quite essential, and looked at also a digital platform. DICE put together a digital access to remote renewable energy systems. So looking at monitoring, maintenance and sustainability of energy installations in all of NT's remote communities. Another great opportunity and a big employer of Territorians and Aboriginal people. And Warlpiri Media has developed IndigiVR, which is showcasing some of the most amazing Territory Indigenous sites to audiences around the world. So where we can't have people actually going into the remote communities. And that particular project is based in Yuendamu, for those who are familiar with the Northern Territory. It's quite small, and employs 35 Territorians. And if you want, there's a 3-minute video there that we can play. Yeah?
Yeah.
If it works. Control.
What we can do, family, we can do it as a separate post later on.
Yeah,
we can share it. We'll show it as part of a separate post from the team.
That sounds great, because I've gone way longer than I thought I was going to go. I just, yeah.
My plan worked.
That's okay.
Yeah, no, we'll do it later so that we've got.
Do it later, or do it? It's kind of starting.
Well, it's on. So you've got 3 minutes. It is a great little story.
Yeah. Now we'll share it as a separate post, if that's okay with both of you.
All right.
Okay.
Right, we'll try and close that down now. Hang on. Computer away from us now. It's doing.
That was just like a lovely intro to, and over to Jason to rebound.
All right. So thank you again, Cathy, for that introduction to the first 2 parts of what really describes a 3-phase jobs rescue and recovery plan. And so the Chief Minister is fond of saying that he'll do whatever it takes to protect Territorians, and that extends into the economic as well as the health protection. And so Cathy's talked about survive and adapt and recover, and obviously adapt and recover is still ongoing as we keep responding to the new way of working, and also responding to the way we have to adjust our work with the ongoing hotspots and things that are happening at the moment. So that gets to the rebound, the 3rd phase, rebound and reset. And this really is about looking forward. So how do we position the Territory and our economy in this new operating environment in the world, bearing in mind that we have actually come off the back of, we've been slowly transitioning from a large construction project here in the top end, which provided a real boost to the economy, but as also having construction tail off also provided a bit of a downturn in activity. And so the next slide just talks a bit about the Territory's economic trajectory over the last 20 years, and you can see that it really is a succession of major projects that's been moving the economy from strength to strength over time. And I will confess, this has not been updated for today's fiscal update that's been provided by the Treasurer and the Chief Minister. So hopefully some of you may have caught that. I have been in meetings, so I haven't caught that yet. So the forecast period, which is obviously this year and going forward, will be largely improved by and updated with what they've been able to release to the Territory public heading into the election. But you can see from this chart that we have grown considerably over the last 20 years. What's interesting about this chart is you look at the bottom line, there's a blue line, I think it's blue on my screen, which is called public investment, and it's been pretty constant. A few increases where it's required, and that's a really important line because the Territory Government has been investing considerably in the economy to try and keep the economy moving forward. And one of the messages you would have heard today and be reinforced over the last little while is the fact that there's only so much capacity in the public sector to keep supporting the economy in the way it has been historically. And so that really then goes to, well, how will we grow the economy then? And so that brings us back to private investment. And so a combination of both Commonwealth and NT public investment is really important, but we've got to use that to leverage a greater share of private investment, both locally and from other sources, whether it be nationally or internationally. And obviously we're doing that in the middle of a global yes, recession, depression, depending on how many years forward people are looking at, which is impacting everybody. One of the things that the Commission has said in its first report is, every town, every state, every territory, every country is now focused on economic recovery, right? And so we're no different. And in fact, we're all fighting, in many cases, for the same resources and the same interests from private sector proponents as well as their own governments. This next chart is just another interesting look at the economy over the same or a bit longer period. And it shows that we do have, and we have survived various downturns. So as the projects happen and come off, you'll find the economic activity, does, we call it the spaghetti chart, because you can see how employment, you can see how GSP and population all track each other. And so it's really important to understand that we've done, we've been through similar cycles before. Obviously, this is once in a generation. I think it's the first in a century type occurrence for us at the moment. But the territory has weathered these kinds of downturns in the past, and we're confident we can do it again, and in fact grow stronger from it. And that's, I guess, where the NT government has said, well, what we want to do is get a group of well-respected people together. So the Territory Economic Reconstruction Commission, co-chaired by the Honourable Paul Henderson and Andrew Liveris, and try and get them to help us give advice around what the territory can do to position itself for growth and move forward. In fact, the Commission has released its first report, so I encourage you, if you haven't already had a chance to read that. It is a first report. It was done within 8 weeks of them forming. It did look at, and it gets it focused on 2 areas. It focused on immediate opportunities. So what we're looking for was saying, well, what are things that are close to being able to be progressed that government should really rally around as part of a rebound strategy? And the second was starting to think about what are those things we have to start now to really position the territory for growth in the medium term. And I fully understand that a lot of people will be focused on, well, actually, until JobKeeper was extended, there was a real cliff coming in September. There are real immediate economic circumstances that the Commission can't will have to put its mind to as well, while trying to help position the territory for growth in the medium to long term, recognising that some of these things will take time to bring to fruition. And one of the examples, for example, is water security in the top end. So there's been talk for a long time about expanding the water supply and the infrastructure required for that. There's some projects, there's some work happening now around that. What the Commission is saying in its first report is, that's great, but you've actually got to accelerate that, because even though you're studying it, you haven't actually decided what the actual plan is to act on. And so if you've got to do more work, well, do that work faster, because that water security, that access to water is so important to attracting private investment, especially in the areas where water is a major component, where it might be manufacturing, minerals processing, agribusiness.
Jason, in that previous slide, if you just go back just one, it'd be awesome to see that line that you had in that next slide around employment and population added onto this, because it'd be a great leveler around providing the whole picture around what the piece is. I think that'll be really powerful as well, my brother, just as an observation.
Yeah, thanks for that. No, you're right. And sometimes it's if everyone agreed to what I want on the slides, the graphs would be incomprehensible. But no, I agree. It is really good. That's why I always add the second one in, because it is important to see how that tracks.
Yeah.
I've heard lots of people say we don't want any more impacts or other major projects, and I think I understand where that's coming from, because there are highs and lows in those. But I think one of the opportunities for the territory is to always take another step off each major project to keep growing and building its base. As Kathy mentioned, we've got 14,000 SMEs, and I always say we're the S in SMEs in the territory, right? And so one of the things we've got to do is help the S become an M, and actually really stabilise and grow that real medium size business, and that requires activity, requires ongoing opportunity.
And I think the other thing there as well,
I'm
coming from a commercial perspective, that'd be really awesome. Is I know this is a very Northern Territory focused diagram and illustration. It'd be great to see some of the. I know there's a number of Northern Territory Territorian businesses that are doing business in other states and territories.
Yes.
And the flow back of revenue back into the territory would be a great level as well, because that's investment back into our own, right?
Absolutely.
I think that's also powerful to keep that in mind as well, because we've got some great Territorian businesses, whether they're Indigenous or non-Indigenous, cracking well above their weight in other states and territories, and that money is flowing back into our territory communities.
Yeah. No, it's a really good point. And so the territory isn't just serving itself. It actually is exporting its services and providing services elsewhere. So it's really but the reality is our economy is a very export-orientated economy, right? Yeah. So one of the things I'm fond of saying is the territory is not the demand centre that most people are aiming for in terms of supplying, whether it be gas, whether it be energy, whether it be manufacturing or processing minerals. The reality is most of those things are actually being exported externally.
Right.
And so one of the questions I think you'll see in the first report is actually identifying the opportunity for us to actually grow our capacity in those value chains, to go up the value chain from just picking and shipping to actually more processing around minerals, for example.
Yeah.
And using renewables and using our other resources to support that and provide a bit of point of difference going forward.
I mean, big football opportunity up there north, as part of the Northern Infrastructure and obviously the Defence White Paper. It's the map is, the target is on our northern region, including the Northern Territory is a big part of that. So I agree with you. I'm really excited for the territory and for our Indigenous and non-Indigenous businesses. I think the opportunities are just around the corner, which is really fantastic to see. Thanks, mate.
Yeah. So look, in the green paper that accompanied the establishment of the Territory Economic Reconstruction Commission, there was a very ambitious vision.
Someone's placed us all on mute.
Yeah, Jason, I can't hear you.
Yeah, I can't hear you, brother. Can you take your thing off mute if you don't mind?
Yeah. Not sure what happened there. Someone got us all. All right. So we're back. So I was just launching into the very ambitious goal the Chief Minister set in the paper that accompanied the establishment of the Territory Economic Reconstruction Commission, and that was to be a $40 billion economy by the end of the decade.
Right.
Now, if you think about pre-COVID, we were $26 billion as a way of measuring the economy. That means, a $13 or $14 billion increase over the next, it's now half a year down, so next 9.5 years, which is a very tall order. And I think you'll see in the report, the Commission's opinion was that this was a significant ask, rather than be dismissive of that vision or discouraged. What they did say was that it required bold action against the fundamentals to actually make that happen. And that's what I guess the Commission's really focused on, is getting those fundamentals right. And so, just to be in context, it's an average of 5%, growth, which we haven't had, I don't think, historically at all. So it's a really big ask. And so what I often do to people is to again, not be discouraged. Think about the $40 billion economy as a way of thinking about how you might rearrange yourself and rearrange your priorities. Because if you, by trying to achieve that and getting, say, 39 billion or 37 billion or 35 billion, you've got a long way in terms of growing the territory and the opportunities for Territorians. And you may not achieve 40, but you've gone a long way. And so how do you go about structuring the way we think about, the way we regulate, the way we engage with the private sector in a way that actually goes after that target in a very serious way? And so you can see on the slide there things like new policy settings. And I've had this feedback from other presentations. The Commission is not about shortcuts. It's not about not doing the right thing in regulation. What it's saying is that often it's not the law that's a problem. It's in terms of helping the private sector move forward. It's actually the way government has over the time, put layers and layers of administration around the law. So something happens once, and so suddenly we build a whole new process to manage that one risk that has never happened again, but the process is there. And nevertheless, that creates more and more, we call it beige tape. So you've got red tape, which is the law, you've got the green tape, which is the so-called environment requirements, but then you've got beige tape, which is the new term I've heard, which is really about the administration and the way we administer laws. And
I've heard it called duct tape as well, mate.
yeah, exactly, right. So much tape, right?
Sorry.
Yeah, and actually, if you listen to Andrew Liveris, he talks about cutting the red tape and rolling out the red carpet. So and that's a very serious point. Like, this is all about how do we, as a jurisdiction, attract other sources of investment, given that government, we're both federally and territory-wide are actually fiscally constrained in what else they can do. They'll do more, they'll borrow more, I get that. But if you can do $1 of investment by government and get 4, 5, 10 from private sector, those are the kinds of things we've got to start focusing our attention on. And that's kind of the thinking around a lot of the work that the Commission is starting to do.
Family, I'm just mindful of time. I know we started.
Yep, I'll go through really quickly the next few slides.
Yeah, no, just in regards, I'm just going to share for the rest of the audience, family, that's right. If you've got any questions, please include them onto the chat. The team's in the background moderating some of the questions. We have started a little bit late, so I'm going to ask for your consideration for us just to go another 5 or 10 minutes of your time. If you're not able to think, this whole recording will be provided later on, but I think this is really valuable content to share. So just wanted to share that, Brother Jason and Sister Cathy. Please continue. I'm really enjoying it.
All right. So just a bit of structure-wise. So the Chief Minister and Cabinet is who the Commission reports to. It's got 6 months, right? So we're already 2 months in. So we've got 4 months left to produce the advice that the Chief Minister requested. They have established Team Territory that supports the Commission. This is a group of 17 local sort of business and NGO land council leaders. They're appointed in their individual capacity. And their idea is to give, for the next 6 months or the next 4 months, provide the Commission with some territory context in the way they're thinking about the advice to the government. They did get a chance to review the recommendations of the first report and provide feedback, which was very well received. But then once the Commission's finished its job in November, is actually then to help government provide guidance and help government oversee the implementation of that advice for the next 1.5 years. So they're a 2-year term, essentially. So that's a very important role. And of course, we can't forget that everything here is linked back to the regional reconstruction committees. So they've all been reformed, some new ones created to help provide, again, that local regional context. So I encourage everybody to reach out to those groups. If you don't know how to find them, just give us an email and we'll help connect you. But they're out there and they should be your voice, particularly from the regions.
So is that as a feedback loop opportunity, or is that also for support and advice as well?
Well, I think that, again, these committees are presenting the region's view, and so by talking to the people who are on those committees, you can actually make sure that your ideas and views are being considered as part of that process.
Great.
So the Commission already ran a public submissions process. It was a 5-week process that ended last Friday. We are taking late submissions. So again, if you wanted to make a submission but didn't get a chance because it closed, just email us and we can talk through the timing around that. Obviously, the closer to now versus November, the more we can consider it. It's how I say it. I think others would prefer to say by the end of August, but I think the reality is we want to hear from people as they are working through this process, and we also know that things are changing. You know, every week there's something new to consider around how we respond to the current crisis and work out how we might cut a path or roadmap to growth. So this is the kind of structure that we're using to engage. We've got 138 submissions. We expect about 150 plus. We thought we were doing okay. We had about 50 on Thursday last week before the Friday, because it's a typical territory approach. And we had 35 of those already summarised, and then we got smashed on Friday with another 100 submissions or something like that. So it's been really great to receive everyone's ideas around this. We've got a diverse range of different organisations and groups and ideas. Everything from an opera house at Murray Point to genuine policy setting changes and things. So it's really really encouraging. So as I said before, the Commission says, well, if we're going to achieve growth and be competitive in winning private investment from all the various towns and economies around the world, then we've got to pursue a step change in our approach to attracting investment. And so, they're focused very much on our traditional sectors. It's probably fair to say. So we are an endowment-based jurisdiction. We have great assets when it comes to iconic landscapes for tourism. We've got great assets when it comes to providing mineral wealth for the for the modern 21st century economy. We've got great places to grow and fish, all everything for agribusiness. So no surprises there. They're focused on that. We've also added a manufacturing, so that the Commission's generally focused on trying to work out how the Territory can go beyond the primary production and into that secondary, tertiary type areas of the economy where we actually add value. There's a great discussion by the Advanced Manufacturing Growth Centre that talks about economic complexity and how Australia is nowhere near as complex as other Western nations when it comes to its economies. In fact,
we had some conversation with because we've been sitting with the Charles Darwin. We were appointed the innovators and residents around the Aboriginal STEM space.
Yes.
And we had a really great conversation with obviously the innovator residents around the advanced manufacturing on campus as well.
Yes.
It's really exciting, that space as well. So yeah, I think that's a really great growth opportunity, definitely.
Yeah, and so the overarching goal of all this, as I sort of described before, is that the Territory must become the easiest place in Australia to do business. Start a business and then to grow your business. And we all know that at the end of the day, if you want people to be in jobs, then they have to be employed by somebody, right? And that's a business. So we call them projects, we call them whatever, but at the end of the day, it's a business that runs a project. And so we need those businesses to be able to come to the Territory with confidence to invest. So that was the sort of the main thrust of what I wanted to share today. The slide deck that I think you're being shared includes some more detail around terms of reference and those kinds of things. I guess the other comment that's worth just exploring quickly is that we've all seen this before, right? So I've been in public service now for 20 years. I actually got 9 months through my 12-month-long service leave last year before COVID stopped us traveling.
Wow.
And I've been through a few of these processes before myself, right? So we've had economic plans every 3 or 4 years. Every government creates a new plan, and they're very similar. Lots of reports that sits on shelves and don't get implemented. So the Commission's very, very focused on how to make this different. And so in the terms of reference, you'll see that they're actually required to show the Chief Minister the how, right? So not just, here's the idea, tell me how to do the idea, how to implement it, tell me how to engage with the private sector and the public service to make this a reality. What's the economic benefit? What's the GDP contribution? What's the employment? Tell us, how this is going to actually impact and benefit the Territory. And then obviously Team Territory will help the government guide its way through that, the delivery of that. So I think that's another really important piece of this is not just a report that is full of good ideas, but a report that's actually got practical, well thought out ideas with implementation plans that can be executed to really help set the Territory up. I know it's not much time left for questions, but I'm happy to take any questions in relation to. Is
there any questions, Julianne, Leanne, at all? Can I suppose in regards, if I can just ask a couple of questions, seeing there is no questions. Considering, and I love the thing, and I really do appreciate what you've shared today. What's the factor in regards to the health and safety questions in regards to considerations around the application of the plan? Considering that, with COVID amongst the midst, we had the remote communities closed down, they couldn't do cultural business. You had the permit system in regards to freight going in and out of the supply chain. Against this backdrop of what's been shared here, and it's wonderful, the reality of conducting business practically face-to-face and being able to move, what are some of those supply chain considerations that are being tied into that's not shared here? I'm just wondering, as an Indigenous business, but also dealing with remote communities.
I think one of the really fabulous, if there are fabulous things about COVID-19, was the amazing Aboriginal leadership that was shown in communities when they did have to lock down their borders. And I think that's all part of our learning. So what did we do better when we were faced with these challenges? And from an Aboriginal business perspective too, it's about taking advantage of some of the things, the opportunities that came about because of that. There's plenty of work that's been done around food security and remote supply chains and all those sorts of things, but there have been really clever business ideas that have come up from communities about how they can better take control and ownership and management of their own food security and manufacturing. And I think some of the stories, so I think from our perspective, what we need to do is where there are brilliant ideas and good leadership coming from communities, we've got to help enable that if we've got levers that can. So
I think the piece as well, their family, brother and sister, and I think one of the things is about celebrating the success stories, right? The success stories around pivoting, regardless of territory and non-Indigenous and Indigenous businesses, but mainly those pivot points that are happening in the remote communities, the farther reaches of the territory. I think are bangers to be celebrating to the wider, you know, to Canberra and various other areas, I think, as well.
Just to add to that too, I think it also creates opportunities going forward in terms of supply chains, because obviously a lot of people that have supply chains are reaching to other jurisdictions other than the territory where they actually could do it here. Yeah. And so having the restrictions around borders has made people reassess those supply chains, that just-in-time supply chain type arrangements, and say, well, actually, maybe we need to invest more energy in the local capability. Yeah. And that also means bringing people back to the territory as well, right? So, it's a real chance for us to go, well, rather than FIFO, you should actually bring people here because there's less disruption. And by the way, we're one of the safest places to be right now in the territory.
Yeah, and I mean, there's DC points and where they're sitting at the moment in the territory. Sorry, our company in general, this is a side note, do a heap of stuff around logistics and supply chain management. There is a question in regards, and I think it's an important point. Jason, you shared about the submission period. Was there any criteria to be met in regards to the submission, and how for our brothers and sisters that are listening to this recording, how you said August, so is there any criteria around the submission, and how late can that be, like those submissions come into you?
Yeah, sure. So there's actually a slide in the deck which you can have a look at. So submissions that you closed last Friday, and that's okay. If you're making a submission, just give an email to ntrebound@nt.gov.au. The email address is on the slide deck, and we can talk to you about the timing for when you might make a submission. Yeah. Essentially, what the Commission was looking for was for ideas for resetting and rebounding the territory economy. The single overarching criteria was how we contribute to economic growth. And so I'm happy to talk to anybody about a submission if they want to talk to me about it personally. My details are on the slide deck as well. But really, it's sharing your ideas the first step, and thinking about how the Commission might use the idea, right? So the Commission is supposed to give advice to the Chief Minister. So when you're making a submission, think about how you can help the Commission understand how they would then give advice to the Chief Minister about implementing the idea.
And it's a move from outcome-based approach to a strength-based approach. That's, from a level content perspective, I think is what's really encouraging what I see there, brother and sis. Family, look, I'm just noting time here. I just wanted to share some closing remarks, and any other questions. So what will happen in regards to brothers and sisters that are listening to this recording, you'll see a heap of links and stuff that'll come up as well in regards to ongoing posts on how to connect with the Commission, and obviously Jason and Sister Kath around that space. But I just want to share is that if you are watching this replay on Facebook, make sure you get the access in the program. You have to be an Indigenous business. And obviously comment under the post in regards to the word deadly, and you'll receive a message to connect with us in the actual program area. I'm in the group. And if you're watching this on YouTube, you'll have a link on the description for how to connect with us. But also, obviously, this program's for 12 weeks. So we'll be sharing information, Brother Jason and Sister Kath, that you may want to share with obviously with our brothers and sisters as part of the program, and everything will be reposted with everything in regards to it, but I'll have a conversation with you after the call. I just want to take just want to honor you both in regards to your spirit and the efforts that you and the other brothers and sisters as part of the recovery team that are working, and obviously the wider Territorian community. I want to take especially respect to you both in regards to the passion and you sharing the information today. And I will finish our conversation as I started. I just want to pay respects to where you're meeting. Obviously, Sister Kathy shared you're on Larrakia. I just want to pay respects to our ancestors, elders, and community leaders there in the community. Extend that respect to you both, and obviously your teams, and obviously all our brothers and sisters that are listening on the call today. So if there other questions will come through, we'll come back through to Brother Jason and Sister Kathy, come back to when you've asked a question, so don't worry, but make sure that you stay tuned for our next iteration in regards to our next yarning circle, which will be next Wednesday, and you'll see some information. So on behalf of the team, Brother Jason, Sister Kath, thank you very much for your time today. And also to everyone that's listened to the call, really greatly appreciate your time, and have a safe day. Thank you.
Thank you, Murray. Very kind, and best wishes to everyone.
Thanks. Thank you very much. We'll talk to you soon.
Thanks a lot.
Thanks, everyone.
So we're off, Leanne. Hello, Julianne.
Okay, sorry, Julianne, can we press?
Yep, we're all unmuted. Yep.
Yeah, you can stop the recording, please.
Stop the recording.
Down the bottom?
Yeah.
Yep, pause.